Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the pass action and how passing can be an important step in a game of Destiny. So one of the things you can do on your turn is you can simply just pass. And passing is you basically say, I pass, it goes to the other player, they get to take their turn, and then after they're done with their turn, it goes back to you, and then you can take actions, do whatever you need to do. One thing though is if both players pass consecutively, so if I pass and then my opponent passes, the round ends, and whoever was in control of the battlefield at the beginning of the previous round remains in control of the battlefield. So let's say I have a couple resources left. I've rolled out all my dice. I've resolved all the stuff I can resolve. Let's say I've resolved everything. Everything is back on the character. All the characters are exhausted. But I still have two resources, so I can pass and see what my opponent does. I'll then it'll go back to me after they do something, and if I still have cards in my hand that cost two or less resources or whatever resources I have, I can then play it and react to it. So if you do everything you can, resolve all your dice, and then on your next turn immediately claim the battlefield, you essentially give your opponent permission to do whatever they want. Is like if they have characters that they haven't rolled out yet, they can roll out those characters and resolve them, and you're not going to be able to react to any of it. By passing, you can let them roll their character out, and then when it passes back to you, you still have an opportunity to react, provided you have the resources and the right cards. So if I pass and my opponent rolls out a character, passes back to me, I can then, let's say, um, play Feel Your Anger and remove dice equal to how many blanks my opponent has just rolled. If I had claimed the battlefield, he would be able to resolve dice. Basically, all the dice that he just rolled, he'd be able to resolve, re-roll, um, and so on. Even if he had like stuff that you can't resolve all at once, it essentially gives him or her the option for almost like an all in. So because I can't react to anything anymore if I claim the battlefield, let's say he rolled out a resource, a +2 range damage, a and a shield, can claim the claim the resource, get the resource, use that resource immediately to pay for the damage, and then get a shield without me having the opportunity to react to it at all. There was one game I saw where it was Luke and Akbar, and I think it was like a Han and Ray deck. And Han and Ray is a very fast deck, so you're playing stuff on Ray to use her ability to get additional actions. Especially if you're playing stuff with ambush, you're getting even more actions. So Han and Ray has a tendency, at least from what I've played, to play out all their options very fast, and then they will, claim the battlefield. And if they're playing on the Starship Graveyard, they'll get an upgrade back in their on top of their deck and things like that. So I think somebody was playing Han and Ray against somebody that was playing Luke and Akbar. So the player rolled out Luke, did everything he could do with Luke throughout the turn, resolved damage, all that kind of stuff. The Han and Ray players did the same. They rolled out Han, they rolled out Ray. They did all their actions very fast because of Ray's ability, and then went back to the Akbar's player's turn. They did a few more things, and then on a Han and Ray turn, they claimed the battlefield, and that ends their turn essentially. But what the guy playing Akbar and Luke had, he hadn't rolled out Akbar yet. Akbar hadn't been rolled, so he was able to exhaust Akbar, play leadership, and get a whole nother run with Luke. Now, if the player playing as Han and Ray didn't claim the battlefield, they would have at least been able to react to the Luke second activation. So the guy could have still played leadership on Akbar, exhausted him, rolled out Luke, but then it would pass back to the Han and Ray player, and they would have had the option to play something in their deck that would maybe force a reroll or force like dice removal and things like that. Instead, by them claiming the battlefield when they did, they essentially let Luke just hit them for a bunch of damage. I think it ended up actually killing the Ray character at that point as well. So that's the takeaway: is if you can pass, go ahead and pass, see what your opponent does, and then you get the opportunity to react instead of just claiming the battlefield and then allowing them to do a ton of stuff. They can, roll in characters, they can get upgrades out, maybe even like do a bunch of damage, and then in the Luke and Akbar situation, exhaust Akbar before he's even rolled and get a whole nother activation out of Luke. So claiming the battlefield and passing, you have to really weigh the options. Is claiming the battlefield worth it? Um are you running a deck that's very dependent on controlling the battlefield? Then you might want to be more inclined to claim it. So if you're running a lot of stuff like occupation or dug in or defensive position, that you still have to pay the resource cost. You have to have the card in hand, but you also have to control the battlefield. So if you have a lot of those cards in your hand, you might want to claim the battlefield, but you probably might still want to pass just to see what your opponents do. A lot of times I've noticed in my decks, I really ended up not needing those control cards like occupation and defensive position, because some of them, they only work on dice that are below a certain value. Um, Occupation gets rid of resources, so if your opponent only has, like, let's say, 2 resources, it might not even be worth playing that. So it's still, I think, a better option to actually pass once, see what happens. If they don't really do much, or they don't look like they're going to do much, you can maybe then go ahead and claim the battlefield. But yeah, situation with Luke and Akbar was pretty insane, because he got one activation with Luke, did a bunch of damage. Um, Leadership on Akbar, like pretty much like uncontested, because the other player had claimed the battlefield, getting a second activation out of Luke and doing a bunch more damage. So basically, you just have to weigh the pros and cons of, should I claim the battlefield or should I pass to see what my opponent does. That's going to do it for today's video. Just wanted to talk a little bit about passing. Always remember, it's an option that you have. However, if both players do pass consecutively, the round will end. But so you don't really, if you have stuff that you can do, you might not want to pass in case your opponent also passes, just to deny you from doing something. But that's it for today's video. I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.